Hi there, and thank you for joining me for today's live reading of Ride a Dark Trail by Winter Austin, and this is presented by Itsy Bitsy Book Bits. Chapter 1. His ghost always joined her for the final drag on an Ave Maria Dark Night cigar. He started appearing 2 months into her newly formed habit, always in his sweat-stained, gray open-road Stetson and wool-lined coat with a few less wrinkles in his face. Here, in the goat's lean-to, where she'd taken to hiding out to have her smoke, so as not to offend her mother's senses. At his first appearance, she swore it was a hallucination. The second time, she flipped out. With each appearance, since she became more belligerent, while he grew more persistent. Biloba, why do you keep doing this thing? She blew out the smoke. Go away, Atanacho. Her grandfather shook his head. One of the goats meandered through his transparent legs, disrupting his stern reproach. Aitona turned his withering look to the red-brown doe munching on hay. Goats. She just had to get goats. A smile twitched at the corners of her mouth as she drew on the cigar for the last time. 1 year after her grandfather passed, her mother had sold the last of the sheep, turned the ranch into an outfitter and hunting business, bought horses and mules for it, then goats, just for the hell of it. The small herd had come in real handy in keeping the overgrowth of underbrush and weeds under control, saving the ranch a time or two from wildfires. The milking goats also made convenient pack animals when there was need for nourishment up in the mountains. Aitona didn't roll over in his grave. No, he came back to fucking haunt her and complain about the goats. Dorothy Ybarra, where are you? His specter vanished with her last puff of smoke. Before her mother could barge into the goat's lean-to and give her hell for smoking in the building, Dorothy ground the butt into the bottom of her boot. One disapproving familia was enough, even if Aitana Cho was an apparition of her mind. Angela Ibarra rounded the edge of the lean-to's weathered support post, her pack of mutts in tow. The goats scattered, except for a leggy dark brown female who'd taken a liking to Dot and exuded copious amounts of stubborn. That doe would not be deterred by no dog. Exactly 20 years older and just as whipcord lean as her daughter, Angela Ybarra was the polar opposite when it came to Dot's tornado and a trailer park personality. But that didn't stop Angela from pulling the matriarch card every chance she got. Angela wrinkled her nose and gave Dot a pointed look, but held her tongue. Dot hadn't burned down any buildings yet. Her mother reached out and scratched the doe's withers. I've got a new elk hunting party coming in later today. We're taking them out to that nice valley for their hunt. I need to grab a few supplies for the trip. In the meantime, would you round up your gear and check it over? You sure you want me up there with you? I need you, Dot. This is a new group to me. In other words, Amma wasn't comfortable being in her own with this bunch. Most of the hunters Angela outfitted were longtime customers she had built a strong rapport with and trusted. She took on new clients only if there was a long lull between her regulars and funds were tight. Since Dot's return to the ranch, she'd been her mother's backup when one of the local sheep herders wasn't available to ride out with Angela. Dot's presence on hunts was a good deterrent for wannabe suitors or general dickheads. Not that Angela Ibarra couldn't hold her own. She was Samo Ibarra's daughter, after all, and had sent many a man intending ill intent back to civilization with a limp and severe damage to his manhood. Dot, on the other hand, was less accommodating. The pervs usually woke up in the hospital, cuffed to the bed rail. Amma, you don't need to earn the extra cash. I can spot you. No. Angela sliced the air with a disapproving finger. Your army and pilot funds are yours. Don't waste them on my business. Come on. I'll hear no more of it. Angela checked her watch. I'm going. Be ready. She slipped from view, her canine pack following. Dot's guard goat gave a very goat-like nicker as she munched on weeds bold enough to dare grow in their pen. It might have been a year since the crash. She might have been released from physical therapy with a clean bill of health 2 months ago. And she might be in the best physical shape of her life since basic training and flight school. Still, Dot hadn't spent more than 2 hours horseback in the last 6 months. Riding into the foothills of the Payette National Forest and getting to that valley her mother spoke of meant at least an 8-hour ride, probably longer if this new hunting party wasn't used to long hours in the saddle. Dot groaned. Good thing she loved her mother. She rose from the goat's favorite climbing stump and vacated the lean-to. At the corner, she glanced back at the spot where Aitana had appeared. He died while she was away at training. It ate at her for years that she hadn't been here to see him crossed over to the other side and be with his beloved Dorothy, Dot's namesake, though somehow he hadn't quite left the ranch. He wanted to know, or maybe she was using his specter to ask herself the question. Why did she do this thing? She was hale and hearty, ready to get back in the air. God knew the Forest Service hadn't stopped calling, yet she couldn't pull herself away from her current predicament. Why? I'm doing it for Amma, she said to the air. Alone in the barn, Dot worked the bowstring for her recurve. The tang of warm horseflesh and sweet summer hay soothed her. In the paddock beside the barn, a horse gave a low, throaty greeting to a friend and was answered in kind. Dot lifted the tightly woven string and inspected it. The best way to ensure reliability was to knock arrow to string and let it fly at a target. Her earliest memory was standing with Aitana, his muscular arms haloing her tiny form and helping her draw back a bowstring on an equally tiny recurve. Hunting and fishing and all their forms had been ingrained into Dot from the moment her small hands could navigate the intricate details of each instrument. When not advocating or educating for the Basque community or tending to his beloved sheep ranch, her grandfather was hunting or fishing. During her years as an Army aviator, she'd fine-tuned her tracking and aiming skills in a different way. She now possessed uncanny abilities that made hunters visiting their outfitting business envious. Dot checked her watch, a parting gift from her squad commander the day she DD 214 out of the Army. Mom should be returning soon. Hopefully, she would be bringing something from Euskadi to eat. Dot was starving. She was repacking her gear when the dog started up a ruckus. She set aside her equipment bag and rose from the makeshift hay bale seat. A stranger was near. Dot emerged from the barn's darkened interior and leaned a shoulder into the wall. Beneath her cream-colored felt Stetson, she scanned the drive. Nothing. One of the blue heelers shot past her post, toward the dirt path ringing the homestead. Fast on the bitch's trail came the rest of the pack. Intrigued, Dot left her spot and followed the dogs. If no one was coming up the drive, then what did they hear and smell? She passed the house and the goat pasture, where the Great Pyrenees and Anatolian guard dogs' deep barks echoed over the valley. Dot stepped out from under the low branches of the shade trees and spotted the pack running to the wood fence, separating the yard from the empty summer pasture. With the start of elk season, there were times when hunters on their own would get lost or turned around in the forest and somehow end up here. On a few occasions, they would mistake the Ybarra ranch animals for the prey they hunted and take shots. Dot scanned the horizon. A black shadow broke the pristine lines, wobbling about through the pasture's long grasses. She tilted back the brim of her hat and let her hawk eyes take in the sight coming toward her. The continued barking grated on her already frayed nerves. Nahikoa. The pack fell silent, but the dogs were not done. They kept their collective gazes trained on the oncoming intruder. Dot lowered her right hand to her hip and removed the ever-present sidearm strapped to her leg. The intruder was too far away to tell if this was a predator or not. Wild animals were known to venture out of the Payette National Forest in search of easy game if conditions forced them. She closed the distance between her position and the fence. It's Alida, she said, ordering the dogs off. They scuttled back to the trees, refusing to leave her alone. She never had anything to fear with those four-legged wingmen. A cry echoed over the wide span of ground, a very human cry. The figure took shape as they raised an arm. Another cry went up right as the person floundered and went down, disappearing behind the waist-high grass. Shit. Dot rushed to the fence and vaulted over it. The dogs once again started up their chorus of intruder alert. Dot snarled at their persistence. She raced across the field, keeping her sidearm ready, straight for the spot where the figure had gone down. The faint cries increased in volume and distress the closer Dot grew. She slowed her pace and lifted the pistol, searching the tree line for any signs of a threat of the four-legged or two-legged kind. She parted the grass, revealing a pitiful creature in the fetal position on the ground. What the hell? The creature's body jerked, and a disheveled head, the color of dried wheat, lifted from the ground. A pair of red-rimmed doe eyes peered up at Dot. Don't shoot, she pleaded, raising blood-stained and dirty hands. Dot lowered the weapon. Who are you? I need help. He took her. She gathered herself and pried her trembling body up from the earth, still keeping her hands raised. He took her. Who took who? How did you get out here? The woman, if she could be called that, she didn't look a day over 17, continued to give mewling sounds. Assured she was alone and nothing dangerous would come blowing out of the forest, Dot holstered her pistol. She cataloged the girl's features: the skewed flannel shirt, the dirty and ripped jeans, the piss poor excuse for shoes, and the bleeding cuts, joined by a large purple bruise under her left eye. She had obviously been in the rocky areas past the Ybarra ranch, hiking or camping in the Payette. Something was off. Really off. My ex, she blurted, he took my daughter. And why would he do that? Through the blood and bruises, sheer terror appeared on the girl's face. I don't know. Were you in the Payette? Yes, I was hiking with my daughter. I don't know how he found us. What she didn't say was broadcast all over her face and body. He'd beat the shit out of her before running off with the kid. What's your name? Dot asked. Giving a great shudder, the girl swiped away snot, blood, and tears from her face with the cuff of her torn sleeve. My name is Ashley. She flinched at the sight on her sleeve. Ashley Cooper. Dot reached out and pulled the girl toward her. Well, Ashley, looks like I'm about to disappoint my mother today.